Hello everyone, it is Joe here from OmniPoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Crown Zenith, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. For today's video, myself and Jack are going to be talking about the newly revealed cards from the Triple Beat set. It's just a small set, 73 cards, but it's going to be part of our June expansion, Paldea Evolved, alongside some more cards that are yet to be released. So we're going to jump down to the trainers, have a look at some of those first, and a handful of Pokemon. Our initial knee-jerk reaction is there's nothing too crazy, but there are still some good cards to chat about.
Yeah.
We'll start off with the reprint of Superior Energy Retrieval. Discarding 2 from hand, and then you're able to get 4 basic energy from your discard pile into your hand. You're not able to use the cards that you paid for the cost of Superior and get them straight back. But yeah, it seems like a pretty reasonable card. There is a Meowskarada EX that we'll look at in this set that takes advantage of recurring energy with its ability for just more damage, and maybe that's a home for a card like that. We still have just regular energy retrieval, which is normally like pretty reasonable for just that usual card effect where it's just a free +1 to hand, but if you're really splashing out with energy, this is a nice card to have in decks, I think.
Yeah, this is basically only ever used in Rain Dance decks, so it's just a good one to have for that. Like you say, we've got energy retrieval, we've got energy recycler, so I really don't think I see a massive need for this card right now. I think even in Meowskarada, we'll probably see energy retrieval more so than Superior, but good to have. You know, it's always a good thing to have for these Rain Dance decks. It's always cool to see those working well, so a nice piece for them to have lots of energy.
We have Dendra, a supporter that allows you to forces you to put 1 card from your hand to the bottom of your deck, then draw until you have 5. Doesn't seem all that strong. A little bit of cycle. You can put a card that you don't need that's sort of clogging you to the bottom, but it's really not that strong of an effect.
Yeah.
We have Quaquaval, the supporter that allows you to search your deck for up to 3 basic Pokemon that have 120 or less hit points and put them into your hand. Definitely like search that goes to hand. That's much better than putting them directly onto the board, because then it has slightly less diminishing returns where you can use things that have coming into play effects, and you can just play the card to thin your deck as well at times, even if you don't intend to put them all into play. And it's cool to have cards like this that are directly supporting one-prize decks, right?
Yeah.
That's the idea. Typically, since we've seen the supporter rule change that was way back in Sword and Shield base, we haven't seen these sorts of effects do well. They're quite slow.
Yeah.
So it doesn't really feel that important when we have Nespal, VIP, even capturing Aroma and stuff like that to help out find basics. It's not something that we're really gasping for right now, I don't think.
I think it's a really nice one to have, but again, I don't think it's going to be seeing masses of play. We've got some great supporters right now, so right now, not good enough. Maybe when things start to slow down, perhaps it will be, but yeah.
We have Faulkner, allows you to draw 2, but if you have a stadium in play, you get to draw 2 more. Hello! Yeah, I mean, it's not that great, is it?
Yeah, these draw 4 effects are very rarely do well. I think there's only been a handful of them that I've ever really seen play. And the fact it's not just a stadium, it's your stadium as well.
That's the big thing.
Really annoying as well. So yeah, it's unfortunately just not going to quite be good enough.
We have a Pog Getsis, Boss's Orders.
Yeah.
Your favourite?
No, Cyrus is still my favourite, but this is definitely my second. I think this is a brilliant card, brilliant looking card.
We have Artisan Town, a stadium card that says once during each player's turn, that player may search their deck for 1 basic Pokemon, excluding Pokemon that have a rule box, and play it directly to the bench, and then they shuffle the deck. So again, similar to the Quaquaval supporter, where it's helping just non-EX decks, and obviously can't get Radiant Pokemon either, or Vs or anything. So this probably has more likelihood of seeing play than that Quaquaval, where it's in addition to your ball search that you're currently playing, and it acts as a stadium bounce. Things like Gardevoir have already played some quite sus stadiums, and something like this, which is just a bit of cream on top that can be a decent opening hand card, seems pretty valuable, to be fair.
Yeah, I think for exactly Gardevoir, this seems like a really strong card, and a future Stage 2 Pokemon that typically...
Meowskarada will need a bounce to path as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, all of these Stage 2 decks, realistically, they're going to all be ability based, so you're going to need a bounce to path. And this seems like I really, really like this one. Again, kind of similar to that Mesa Goza where both players get the effect, but at least this is guaranteed for you, so you're guaranteed getting an effect, which is perfect. So yeah, I actually really like this stadium. It's a really cool one.
And we've seen things like Bibarel see a lot of play, but when I think back to like Octillery, that card didn't see play for the longest time, and then Brooklet Hill came out and it became super playable. So having Artisan Town then makes things like the barrel or even the Curlier engine even stronger, just because you have even like more access to these sorts of cards, which is really cool.
Yeah.
We have Lesson Studio, another stadium that says the attacks of each player's stage 1 Pokemon do 10 more damage to your opponent's active. I can't see many immediate applications. There are some interesting stage 1s around, but it doesn't seem all that
the fact
exciting.
The fact this will go in exactly some stage 1 decks that don't already have a better stadium. I think that's going to be a very, very niche pool of decks.
Yeah.
I've seen some people sort of really raving about this card, saying don't sleep on the fact it's 10 damage, but that's not really the part that I'm concerned about. The part I'm more concerned about is trying to fit it into a stage 1, or trying to find a stage 1 deck where that's your attacker. It looks like we're still going to be, because VMAX and V-Stars aren't considered stage 1s, and they're going to be a big part of our format. Then we've got the Lost Box variants, which are all basics, and then we've got some great stage 2 decks, so it really feels like stage 1 evolution Pokemon as attackers right now are the worst of the bunch, so giving them some support is great, but I don't think this is the kind of support they need. 10 damage.
This doesn't push them massively, right?
No. This isn't an incentive to play a stage 1. It's just a nice addition. But yeah, I think there's not much reason to use it.
Potential for future, like you said. There's going to be a specific number that it changes with a card at some point, maybe.
Yeah, of course.
Possibly the 2 most interesting cards we're going to talk about today are the 2 special energy. Jet's energy. Provides a colourless energy, and when you attach it from your hand to one of your benched Pokemon, switch that Pokemon with your active. Having switch effects on energy attachments are absolutely insane. Warp energies back in the day saw a decent amount of play in a handful of decks, but I much prefer the effect when it's being attached to the bench to bring something into the active.
Yeah.
It definitely helps you have some engine mons that can sit in the active position. You can support things like Mew that little bit better by having a jet energy that could then bring your main attacker into the mix or something like that. If you have sort of hit and run attacks or anything like that, these can be really helpful. The most obvious thing is that it's going to be great for Lost Zone decks where you attach to your Comfey, jet a Comfey into the active, and then it will then pay retreat for your next Comfey as well. So it's allowing you to have 2 selects in 1 energy attachment, which is very solid. And it just seems to be one of these cards that's going to, over and over again, be very helpful. Lugia, again, finds itself another helpful colourless energy, where you don't really want to commit space to switch cards. You'd much rather them come in the form of energy, especially with the single strike stuff that has 3 retreats on lots of things. So just a very flexible, very good colourless energy, I think.
Yeah, really, really cool. Not massively flashy or anything, just a very, very solid card. We said it's a lot. Lumping 2 cards together is often really premium, and any energy attachment plus a switch is brilliant. So yeah, I think realistically Lost Box is where this is going to see huge amounts of play. I actually think it will be in and out of other lists, but I'll never really be too surprised to see it ever. I don't think it will be sort of a staple in every list. It could be like an additional 1 or 2 for decks that are really struggling for space and want to cheat some space here and there. But yeah, really, really strong energy. Nothing. It feels it's not really flashy or anything, but just being, it's essentially, like you say, it's a 2-for-1 in Lost Box, which when it's lost scoop of nets and stuff, that's just brilliant.
And then we have Luminous Energy, which is essentially multi-energy. I don't know why they didn't just call it multi-energy, but it provides every type of energy when it's attached to a Pokemon, but if you have any other special energy attached, it only provides colourless. So it's a rainbow energy without having to damage yourself, but you can only really have one of these attached, and then you're not able to take advantage of other special energy. I think it's a really decent fixer actually for a few things. Maybe it breathes a little bit of life into a Reggie deck, where you can play a number of basic energy, but then have a few Luminous in there as well to sort of fix things at times, which could be interesting. Could also find its way into, again, like Lost Box style decks, where you have a number of different coloured energies, but then you also play a couple Luminous to help you out. A few other applications, like maybe it opens the door for Radiant Charizard to sneak back into Lugia, just so you can just put 1 Luminous energy on and just have it as a late game threat, these sorts of things. I don't know if there's many other like key applications out the gate, but it seems like a really, really strong energy, and is one of the only ways that they could have printed a rainbow style effect while still keeping Reggie's and Lugia balanced, I think.
Yeah, I'm really excited about this card more than anything. I think this opens the door for more tech cards in future, which is something I personally like from the game. I like being able to look for these sort of very niche cards that usually take too much commitment. I think this kind of energy is brilliant for them, and they're typically sort of built up based on rainbow energy effects. So yeah, it's not as strong as like a rainbow or anything, like you say, but it could lead to some sort of tech attackers that have one color plus a couple of colorless within these acceleration in any deck with acceleration, really, which is really exciting because those are the kinds of decks I really, really like, counter box decks, that kind of thing. So I think this is actually one of the best special energy we've seen in a long time for that kind of thing as well. Aurora was just too expensive a lot of the time, and I don't know, it just didn't really feel like Aurora was ever really able to be used like that, but it feels like Luminous Energy is a lot more forgiving because it itself doesn't want to be played with a lot of other special energies, so it's not massively imposing on the deck list or anything. It feels like it's really splashable and stuff like that.
Sweet. So yeah, those are the highlights. Just going to spoil that now as we get to the Pokemon. But there are still some interesting things to look at here. So we will fly through, starting with the grass types. And stop me if you find anything interesting about these cards, but I'm going to quickly scroll through some of the worst ones. We do have Sprigatito, which is probably worth discussing because we know that the Meowskarada is very strong. The 70 hit points, definitely a nice thing to have. We're always looking to have higher than 60 hit points, essentially, with our basics these days.
I think we have 4 of each of the Paldea starters now, so I think we've got a good variety of being able to pick which ones do what,
nice,
which ones are best.
And then I guess the Florigato, because you are likely to be playing double turbo energy, 50 and protect yourself is actually a pretty handy thing to bear in mind. But the Meowskarada is probably one of the more interesting Pokemon that we're going to look at today. Stage 2, 310 hit points, not the chunkiest, is weak to fire, which is relevant because Radiant Charizard could easily be about. It has a 2 retreat cost and a 2 colorless attack, which is 100. And if your opponent's active Pokemon already has damage counters on it, this is 120 more damage. Pretty reasonable. We have lots of ways that we can damage our things. Most notably, its own ability, the Magic Bouquet, allowing you to discard a grass from your hand and then choose one of your opponent's benched Pokemon and put 3 counters on them. And this is stackable, so you can get multiple Meowskaradas out and start bouqueting all over the shop. Is kind of the idea here. There's not much draw power in this, and you're probably going to need to set up multiple of these, which is my biggest concern. And you're going to have a split of DTEs as well as grass energies. Maybe it's trying to put you down that direction of playing like Gardenias even to power up the nail scratch, which scares me. But the power's here, and with this much spread, even with things like Radiant Alakazam possibly as well as a consideration card, these sorts of things where you could then throw counters like onto their active Pokemon, so then you can get full value from nail scratch. Stuff like that sounds pretty interesting to me, and also it's really important to be punishing the Lost Zone engine by the looks of things. Lost Box and Comphase seem to be all over the place right now, and we just talked about Jet Energy really helping out that deck. So it's likely that the Lost Zone stuff is going to continue to be around in this set. So Meowskarada maybe taking cheap prizes just by bouqueting a few times is promising. What are your real thoughts on this? This is a throwback to like XY Greninja's ability, right? But it has just a much bigger body and it's pretty efficient attack.
It's really interesting. The attack is incredibly efficient. Obviously, you've mentioned double turbo, but if you're able to power it up with normal grasses, 220 is a great number in combination with a couple of bouquets to get you to 280 for V-Stars, or even just like a choice belt or 2 to just need the 1 bouquet. Sounds a bit combo-y, but I think a lot of these Stage 2 decks are going to turn out to be a bit combo-y, and we'll have to see whether they all work out or not. It feels, because you don't have that backup of, or the solid foundation in like the Stage 1s you do with things like Flaffy and Curlier, there's a bit of a concern around there. But I can even see with the amount of support they're trying to push to try and get basics into play. You can even play sort of one of these or draw Pokemon like in a thin package in your deck, I think, and potentially be able to get there. Because I think you realistically probably only need a couple of Meowskarada, maybe like 3 would be great, but I think you can probably cycle 2. The other interesting thing is just how the fact it's just double turbo means Cheryl is really, really
That's true.
powerful for this. You can take a hit and still be able to Cheryl and hit again, which seems really interesting. I think there's definitely something here. I think it seems a little bit too convoluted. You need ways of gusting the Pokemon up all the time or moving the damage and stuff, which feels a bit so when you're already really needing to invest a lot into just getting your stage 2s out. But in a vacuum, the card is incredibly strong, I think, and it will surprise me if we don't see it make it to at least probably like tier 2. To be honest, it feels like it's just got enough there simply from Bouquet, being able to deal with a couple of Conveys over a couple of turns and cheat extra prizes whilst not needing that additional damage to just take prizes with Nail Scratch. You can, I think, very reasonably take a couple of prizes per turn with this against Lost Box. And again, realistically, yes, you've only got 310, which isn't great, and you're weak to Charizard, but still, I think you're probably able to, if you know you're in that kind of matchup, I think you're probably able to really turbo and try and just push the Lost Box player out. It feels it's probably going to flop realistically because, or not quite be as good as some of these other stage 2 decks just because there's no certain draw power behind it, but seems like a very, very powerful card in a vacuum, I think.
Well, I'm just thinking about how we could try and get it going, and if you're already a DTE user, just having like an Arceus package could definitely help out, where you can Starbirth to help you get pieces, and it can maybe power up even your first Meowskarada or something like that. Oh no, it can't because it's in the X, right?
Yeah,
but I guess you're already playing quad DTE, so it gives you something to do in the opening turns without needing to candy stage 2. And there's also, I can't remember, I've been thinking this whole time about the name of the card, but there's a V-Star power that gets you 5 grass Pokemon. Lilligant, that's right. So I'm thinking maybe there's some sort of V-Star that could help you out, just get into the game a bit. Because that's my biggest like quandary. I'm like, how am I capitalizing on Bouquet as much as possible?
Yeah.
And doing it in a space efficient way.
I think even Lilligant's attack was like pretty reasonable in terms of efficiency as well. So you could even just have these Meowskaradas literally doing nothing but sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
And having Lilligant as your main attacker. We tried Lilligant. There's even things like the Zarude and stuff that have very, very like it's like
30-30 from Zarude.
30-30, and then there's like there's the one that does 240.
Same card.
Yeah. So it feels like we're starting to build a grass deck. It's just the biggest thing is just there's no draw engine to grass Pokemon at the moment. So
yeah, a little bit rough. Could figure it out though. Nothing too interesting. Lokix has an efficient 130, only on the turn you evolve, but not too exciting. We have 3 different Paldean Tauros from this set. They're basically the same cards, just with slightly different second attacks, but they all have 130 hit points. They all have Fury Horn, which is 20 plus 10 more for each counter on it. Unfortunately, 130 is not what it used to be, so these don't look all that impressive.
That Tauros is a strict upgrade on Reshiram, which is insane when you think about it, because that is just a Tauros, and Reshiram was
bulk Tauros,
a legendary Pokemon.
Yeah, love the artwork on this.
Yeah.
I think it's always important to talk about the artwork when we're giving first impressions.
Definitely.
Oricora can heal 20 from your active evolution Pokemon. Could be interesting. I remember Celisaur used to have a Shaman that helped out here and there. Obviously, this is only for evolution, so it's limited, but possibly you could have a tanky deck that had multiple Passionate Dances going on at the same time, and it could be helpful. Just a little small note there. We have the Skeledirge EX. 340 hit points on a 2-prize Pokemon is massive.
Yeah.
Even though it is a stage 2. It has Vitality Song for a fire. You do 50 and heal 30 from each of your Pokemon, which can be quite annoying for Lost Zone decks, I suppose. But it's only 50 damage, so they can just power up a different attacker. And you also have Burning Voice for 2 fire. You do 270 with a minus, and it's minus 10 for each damage counter on this Pokemon. Typically, minuses are a big issue, and I don't really see an easy way for us to get around this too much. I mean, you can power him up with base and then attach, so again, maybe what you were saying, where you could Cheryl Meowskarada, you could maybe do a similar thing with Skeledirge.
Yeah, I mean, so the biggest partner for me in my mind is probably just Armor Rouge, being able to Cheryl and then attach the energy on with basins and stuff and push them all back to Skeledirge. Essentially meaning that you only need an attachment per turn. I mean, again, it sounds pretty flimsy overall, but yeah, I think that's a relatively simple deck to be. Like, it doesn't sound overly complicated, just a Skeledirge line and an Armor Rouge line, and you get to play a Radiant Charizard in there as well. Again, sounds like it could be a fine deck, nothing groundbreaking, but fine.
Probably too slow. We've got a Gyarados that can do 180 if you have more prize cards remaining than your opponent, but it's an expensive attack cost. Nothing too interesting here. Put your opponent's active and all cards attached into your opponent's hand for 1 water. Bit of a grief attack there. Could be an interesting control-y option. We always have to think about a Zorobox if ever it can come together.
Zorobox already has a lot of water control tools. I think realistically, while we don't have any way of manipulating coin flips, it's probably not going to be particularly important. But we've seen people playing, things like Radiant Jirachi, which whilst they have upside in the ability, there's still people willing to sort of try and play for those flips here and there. And if we move towards a stage 2 format, that's a really big tempo swing. Even though you're not taking any prizes, taking a lot of resources off the board, and that's basically what you want to be doing in this control style deck.
We then have the Quaquaval EX, 320 hit point, stage 2, water type that has the lively Samba for 60 damage. You can switch with one of your bench, and then your opponent also switches, so it's like a escape rope effect for just 1 water, and it's a 60 poke, which actually sets up your Propeller Shot quite nicely. For water colorless, you do 230 and put 2 energy from this Pokemon into your hand. Little bit annoying, doesn't make it very easy to rinse and repeat, but there is already the Quaquaval that we're getting from Scarlet Violet base, which can allow you to attach an energy from your hand to one of your Pokemon as an ability, in addition to your turn attachment. So there's a way where you get multiple Quacks up, and then you can continually Propeller Shot. Again, just the high hit points is kind of the biggest selling point of almost all the EXs that we looked at today. Maybe the Meowskarada is slightly different, but for Quacks and for Skeledirge, it feels like you're just hoping to sponge hits with your 2 prize Pokemon and like slowly accumulate value with your variety of attacks. But it's still a lot of setup. I think the difference with water, at least, is that you have Irida to help you guarantee like Candy Stage 2, which is kind of the biggest selling point of the lot. Do you have any other thoughts on this guy?
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be crazy good, but I actually think this is... I think a lot of people are going to gloss over this. I think for exactly that reason, you've got... Water has a brilliant engine in terms of basically just Irida, but they've got a brilliant engine. The fact that your energy acceleration is already built into your
main evolution line.
Your main evolution line is huge for saving space. It means you actually probably do get to play like Curliers or something like that, and because you're not having to find space for another stage 1 or anything.
Right.
It's a bit of a board hog, but I think realistically, again, you're able to... The idea is you're able to have 1 EX, 1 energy accelerator, and then just 1 Quaxwell on the bench to be able to respond to whether they gust the acceleration or actually deal with the EX. I actually think this deck sounds like it can grind a lot of decks out, to be honest. If you've got a draw if you're able to play a draw engine like a Curlier engine or something, I think again you're very reasonably able to play something like a Cheryl package just to keep sponging hits, and because you're getting rid of all of the energy anyway. I actually think this deck sounds potentially like it could just outgrind some people. Even this could even be combining this with like paths and stuff to really try and just take extra turns and just say eventually how some Arceus decks have said in the past. Basically Arc Intel, how that deck basically wasn't doing anything fancy. It was just saying, I'm going to announce 180 every turn, and eventually that's going to take me 6 prizes. It doesn't have that kind of sort of acceleration or consistency, but it does, I think, have a lot more stopping power when you've got 320 and built-in acceleration from your other stage 2. So I don't think it's going to be a tier 1 deck, but I think it actually sounds pretty solid at grinding a lot of decks out.
Yeah, and actually with the colourless attack cost, you can actually be using some jet energies quite nicely and like jet into your next Quacks. You already have the Samba that's a hit and switch style where you can maybe throw in Clef Keys or whatever other like grief basics that you can throw at people, which could also play into that Cheryl strategy.
Again, say it doesn't sound particularly flashy, but I think the deck just sounds pretty solid, to be honest. Just a lot of efficiency about it.
That's true. We have a Wattrel, which does have Dangerous Wings, which is 20 for each Pokemon in your discard pile that has a Dangerous Wings attack. When I first read this, I was like, "Ooh, let's see what else has." Nothing else has. So, maybe it's a card for future.
I'm certain this will be a card for future, and I really like that they're potentially introducing this over multiple sets rather than giving it giving it us in one set all at once, because it means over time people can start to build their deck and improve it, whilst also them not having to suddenly sort of print a Lysander's trump card or something. Well, it was in the same set, but you know what I mean, a hard counter. They can, whilst they will be months and months ahead in terms of making these cards or whatever, it means that they can spoon feed and just really monitor how strong this deck gets before they necessarily print more and more tools for it. So I'm also, obviously because we're also getting a second set to combine with this one, I'm also expecting probably another one, maybe another 2 Dangerous Wings Mons in that set. But yeah, I will be very surprised if this is the only Dangerous Wings Pokemon. I think it's going to be something. I think it's going to be the Night March or the Lost March, or whatever the one for Sword and Shield was.
Let's roll together, or whatever it was.
That was one of them.
Let's roll out.
Yeah, that was one of them. Yeah, I would be very surprised if this isn't an ongoing archetype, which is again, I think it's pretty cool putting it on flying types as well, because a lot of the time flying types have pretty cool evolutions that we've seen plenty of things like Spearows and stuff that not Spearows, Swellows and stuff that have pretty cool abilities and things like that. So I feel like we could actually build a pretty cool bird Pokemon deck over the next few sets. It could be pretty cool.
All right.
I love Wattrel as well. I think it's
Wattrel and Killer. I had Killer Wattrel on the playthrough. He's a little treat.
Look at that.
This one forces the opponent to shuffle in and draw 4. It reminds me of the Nickets that we had for a Dark Energy that made them shuffle in and draw 3. But this is on a colourless energy, so maybe a bit of more application there.
I 100% think we will see this playing. This will see playing control decks.
This is a grief card for sure. We have a Miss Magius with a crazy nice alt art. We are getting alt arts in this set. It's a stage 1 with 90 hit points. Psychic type, has the magical flick ability. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve, you may choose an energy attached to your opponent's active and move it to one of their benched. I don't think this is all that strong. It's just a once use effect. We have seen this sort of like energy movement thing before, and it's usually something that you could do on like a coin flip or something over and like generate value. So this just feels like not impactful enough for putting a stage 1 in play. We have to reset our mind of being like, oh, but we could scoop up net and use this loads, because you just can't anymore. So it feels like that one and done is just not worth the effort, I think. Nothing too much here. We do have a Dedenne EX, which is a Terrestrial EX Pokemon. Only 170 hit points is really low. But it's a Psychic type, and it has a really interesting attack in Tail Swap for 2 Psychic. You move all damage counters from one of your benched Pokemon to your opponent's active Pokemon. And it also has Wonder Shot, 3 Psychic, 117 discard energy from this guy. What are your main thoughts on the Tail Swap option? Mostly as like a maybe one of in a Guardi EX style deck or a Shadow Rider or something.
I mean, it sounds like it's got potential in a Guardi deck. The only thing that it feels kind of weird to think about is that you're accelerating all that energy to then do less damage than you would with the attack normally, like on a stage 2 or on a 1 prize Guardi. Now, admittedly, this potentially turns your other Guardi, your EX, into still being able to do a lot of damage. But again, you're still not going to be doing more damage than actually the Guardian would itself. So whilst I think immediately it seems really, really cool, I actually don't think there's many practical applications where you're going to be using Tail Swap rather than just using one of the 2 Guardies themselves. Obviously, again, it's a stage 1, it's a basic, and whilst you can't, you're probably going to need something with a lot of HP to actually make it worth it. You don't need a Gardevoir necessarily to be able to make it worth it if it's just healing something that's been taking a hit earlier on. But I think realistically, the practicalities of this card actually mean it's probably not going to see too much play, I don't think.
Yeah, it actually feels like it has anti-synergy with Guardi, even though like you can power it up. Like you said, you'd rather scatter your energy onto something that then
your energy is then locked onto whatever you've attached it to as well, which we've seen in the past can actually be a loss condition, because then other stuff can get trapped here and there and that kind of stuff. So
Also, there's the sad undertones of the Terrestrial mechanics still only protecting this Pokemon from damage on the bench. We'd hoped that this was going to be a more interesting mechanic, and there's still time, but at the moment it is just this effect. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I think it will just be this effect for now. I think it will probably just be this effect
Jack.
for a year or so.
A year?
I think the next progression will be Terrastals of a different type than they actually are, because that's what Terrastal is. But I think we're still in the introduction phase of Terra.
I'm not too panicked just yet.
That
it's just going to be I don't think it's going to be a year. I feel like it could be set 3 where we get maybe a different one.
I think we'll get new types before we get new
rule box. Is that what you think?
I think we'll get new types before we'll get new Terrestrial text.
Oh, that's interesting. I thought it was going to be more similar to Ancient Traits, but that was just where my mind went, I suppose.
I think
when I first saw it.
Yeah, I think now we've seen a little bit more. I think now because we know sets come out in blocks of 4, it feels like it would be a bit weird to not push the Terrestrial thing earlier, the different typing thing earlier, because I don't think they'd want to build a whole block around it. I feel like that's going to be
it's like a world's
mechanic eventually.
Yeah, it's like a world's thing where Ultra Beasts or whatever else was revealed.
But the interesting thing is, we could see like a whole. If they wanted to, they could do like a whole Holon thing where there's all sorts of different things. It's not just Terrastals that are different types. We'll have to wait and see. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, my money is we're going to see different types, I think, instead of new text, unfortunately. It's just so sad.
Yeah. Look at him.
I had to read this. Yeah, I'm going to say that this attack, obviously, on here doesn't say it does any damage. So I was really confused why this attack cost 2 energy.
Right, yeah.
I was like, this is like maybe a colourless attack cost sometimes on like a 60 HP basic. Why am I spending 2 energy on this? It's still only for 30 damage, but at least that made sense.
We have a Tinkerton that has 140 hit points, stage 2. You can discard a card from your hand to draw 3. We already had this effect already on a Samurott, I think it is. Hisuian Samurott. And it's not really doing much. Go on.
I was going to say the only redeeming feature about this card is I'm pretty sure because of the ability and because Samurott was a pre-release promo, I'm pretty sure this will be one of the pre-release promos.
Yeah.
Which will be brilliant. That's basically the only thing I was interested in about this card.
Really not a lot going on here. This is all kind of poor.
I saw someone say this was meant to be a sealed set, which makes sense because a lot of the cards are very basic and apparently it's a set that's designed for opening or doing sealed drafts for.
Interesting.
Which is interesting considering I think it's bizarre they build sets around that when it's not an official format.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, that could be why it's a relatively underwhelming set.
And that's why we're looking at a Lycanroc that is pretty poor. 260 hit points stage 1. Vanilla 1 for 40. Not that exciting. And then for fighting and 2 colours 140. During your opponent's next turn, if the Pokemon is damaged by an attack, put 10 counters on the attacking Pokemon. So it's like a shell trap or whatever it was from Turtle back in the day, old Turtonator. It's really just not worth it, is it?
Yeah, great art though.
Yeah, it's a treat. It's a real treat. We have more art. Look at the kick on him, Jack. Look how much distance he's getting on that.
Yeah, that's going far.
Absolutely. And then
that's
there
brilliant.
he is.
I need 4 of those.
4 of them in the basket.
I need 4 of those
there
as
they
well.
are. Yeah, good. We do have the Clodsire EX, the Paldean Clod. 280 is pretty beefy for a stage 1. Dark type has the Poison Bog ability. If there's a Stadium in play, you may leave your opponent's active Pokemon poison, so it's very similar to a Garbodor that we had. And yeah, we still have some activators for poison. We have obviously Radiant Sneasler to buff poison, but doesn't seem that exciting. His attack does 200, flip a coin. If tails, this Pokemon can't attack during your next turn. It's not good. Like, yes, we have Patch, yes, we have DTE. It's just not worth powering up this guy.
No.
We have a Sableye that can deal 90 for 1 dark if they're affected by a special condition, but that's still not
Surprisingly fair for
Too
a Sableye.
exciting. That is so fair.
1 for 90 seems quite tame for a Sableye overall.
Yeah. Still not much going on. We have a Hydreigon, which has
Great art.
has great art, which leads us on to the effect of the card, where it all goes downhill. 180 hit points. It has Tri-Howl. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 3 cards of your deck and attach any number of energy you find there to your Pokemon in any way you like, then discard the other cards.
I have no idea why they said discard. This could have not said discard and it still would never have seen play.
Terrible.
It's just bizarre.
Yeah.
Look at that, how sad is that Salazzle? Very efficient attacks, but how sad is that Salazzle? There's just no text to it.
Barely any words.
Doing the proxies for this set is going to be so easy. That's great art.
There he is. These are terrible. So yeah, there we go.
The Great Ball reprint, that's the most exciting part of the...
We got a pretty interesting stadium, 2 very good energies, and then 3 stage 2s, which are all like...
I think there's merit to all of them.
Scratching the surface of what's needed for a stage 2 to see play.
I have a feeling Quaquaval won't be good enough, but it's the one I'm the most excited about. I think Meowskarada will probably be better than Quaquaval actually, but I think everyone knows it's good. I'm quite interested in actually exploring Quaquaval and seeing whether that efficiency works out. But yeah, I think this is probably the best Pokemon in the set for sure.
Yep.
Which is kind of sad, but again, we do have another set to go alongside this, and I believe that might even be a dual set. And I think
it's with only 73 cards in this one.
Yeah, I bet it's a dual set called Clayburst and something else, and I think it's about 2 of the 4. I haven't even played the game yet. I don't know what they're called, but the cat,
can't remember what they're called.
The cat and I think the bison.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be sets around those, and they're whilst they don't have to be, they're legendaries or mythics or whatever they are, so they're going to be good.
Busted
so
basics.
I wouldn't be too worried about Paldea Evolve being a flop set yet.
Yeah.
This half of it definitely seems to be, but yeah, we've still got technically 2 more sets this size to come. I think they released around EUIC time, so pretty much straight after EUIC we'll then be able to start testing for set 2.
Oh boy, we'll only just have started Scarlet Violet IRL.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That's some interesting cards, if nothing else.
I think this set makes so much more sense when you read that it might be a sealed set.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Things like the Jet Energy and the Luminous Energy make so much sense in a sealed format because you don't have to then print a switching card, and you can pull a couple of the Luminous Energy and play your random basics that you get.
It's pretty cool, actually. Maybe we should play some sealed of this.
We could get a box.
Let's go.
Cool.
All right.
Coming to the channel soon.
Coming to the channel. Listen, now that I've got the setup, Jack, I just want to use it in any way possible.
Start buying Japanese boxes and cracking them open.
Certainly.
Cool.
Right, we'll see you in another video tomorrow. Cheers.